Welcome to Reality After Show coverage of the challenge. Today we're talking episode 10. I'm your host, Dan Montchal, joined as always, Paulie Calafiore. And Paulie, I feel like it's only fair that we say, was Devin in this episode more than 75% of the cast?
It's so crazy to me. Devin made cameos in this episode more than 75 to 80% of the cast, and which I think goes to show you exactly what we've been saying all along is like, are there people actually there to compete, to make good TV? Or is it just basically bananas at this point, kind of stealing the show?
He definitely came in stealing the show tonight. This was a banana-centric episode, and I'm all for it. Finally, some goddamn action. We got some lines in the sand. That's what we've needed.
I mean, finally, the old bananas kind of came out a little bit to play. Like, where's this guy been for the past X amount of seasons? Like, I think it finally got to a point where people realize he's a threat in the game. Like, Jordan's there to send a message, right?
Mm,
Because this is season 40, so Jordan's doing it just for the sake of like, hey, this is for pride. You know what I mean? Like,
mm.
I like it's he sees the lay of the land of the people left, and he's like, yeah, it's either me or Johnny. So like this is about legacy at this point. You
Of
know what I
course, and
mean?
I mean, especially if you're someone like Jordan, who's right there, is who knows if he'll catch bananas and titles, not because he can't, but simply just how many more seasons is he going to do. But if you win these monumental seasons, they almost count as more than a win. So if bananas would win, Jordan really has no shot at catching him. But if Jordan can win and he says, I'm only two behind you, and I won 30, which was a monumental season, and I won 40, that pretty much puts us even when you say that Johnny's first two titles were a little gimmicky.
And those are bonus points, but also in Jordan's case, like Jordan done it has done it in half the seasons.
Oh, absolutely.
So like Jordan is if he does pull out this win, right? He's two behind Johnny, and he has two monumental season wins, which is like, insane. And when you really think about it, if he wins this one, then that means he surpasses somebody like Darrell. And it means that he ties somebody like CT once again in half the seasons. Now, everybody could argue that if CT didn't get kicked off of all of the seasons in the beginning, maybe he has more than seven. But all things as they are, Jordan would accomplish this in half the time.
Yeah, I mean, you see that argument all the time of CT would have more, and it's just like, you may be true, but that isn't what happened. So we can't go back and play, revisionist
Yeah.
history because
Yeah.
maybe if CT wins in the beginning, we don't see some of the hunger, drive, and determination that we're getting at the end of his career. So, it could go a bunch of different
It's
ways.
it's
But
it's true.
speaking of Jordan, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. I said it's true.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of Jordan, I wasn't going to get to this a little bit later, but he's playing a masterclass this season because the fact that he's able to have no one point at his direction, and what we see from this episode, that if he's able to broker a deal with Rachel, so they're working lockstep, that if you can only get put into danger really by the opposite sex, who is going to get power at any point in this game that's going to turn on Jordan? Because at this point, it looks like he may just coast the final, which is staggering.
Yeah, it's insane, especially when you see how this daily went, right? And like, granted people can argue like, all right, Johnny put two balls in Jordan's thing, and but the puzzle solving aspect, like second place wasn't even close to being behind him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like Jordan like blew through this daily like no other. And for that to be the case where it's like this guy is an absolute animal, and because of the way it's set up where he's with Tori, one of the stronger competitors in the game, right? He just brokered a deal with Rachel, one of the stronger competitors in the game. Kara wasn't coming after him, right? At all.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the relationship that like Jordan and I had prior to the season. Um, and Laurel. is his ex. So,
Yeah.
and she's not coming after him. So, any of the girls that had a chance, in my opinion, to win a daily, which would keep him safe, not on the table.
It's it's insane. It's incredibly impressive because Jordan, obviously no secret. He's, one of the, if he isn't the GOAT, he's one of the GOATs. And you've heard almost every cast member say that Jordan's the one person you don't want to run a final against. He is beatable in eliminations just because depending, if it's overly physical or you never bank on how an elimination is going to go. Sure, he has a good shot at winning, but he's beatable in eliminations. He's not
He,
beatable in a final when he gets to play solo.
yeah, 100%. And to be honest, his percentage of being beatable in eliminations is getting smaller and smaller as time goes on, because as time has gone on, and when you really look at his past appearances, right, he wins Dirty 30, right? So he goes into elimination, loses, go to Redemption House, comes back, wins Dirty 30. All right. He wins his elimination as a mercenary on Vendettas. Okay, then he takes off for 32 and 33, comes back, wins 2 eliminations and a final on War of the Worlds 2, has an early exit on Total Madness earlier than he's used to. Takes a little bit of a break, comes back on All Stars, gets eliminated, kind of close to the final, right? But also pulls in some elimination wins on All Stars, some big ones, and then goes on to World Championships, wins that, and now is on this season. And Ride or Dies makes a final, and then comes on this season and hasn't seen elimination yet. It's almost like the aura and the idea of Jordan is already going to beat 95% of people that go into eliminations with him. Off the rip. Because he hasn't been, like, people don't throw him into eliminations, which gets him closer to a final. And then if he does go down into elimination, here's my thing about Jordan. You could start throwing him into eliminations, first elimination off the gate, because 95% of people are like, shit, I'm going against Jordan. And unless it's a pole wrestle, I'm going to lose. You know what I mean? He has a good chance of, blowing through everybody.
Yeah, if you don't get him into eliminations early and often, he isn't going to see it. And the way that he's able to, they even showed it of him just doing the Homer Simpson, going back in, laying low because, I can make Johnny the bigger target. And also I'm assuming this was planned out by getting Johnny all riled up. That just puts a bigger target on Bananas and lets Jordan lay even lower. And you hear it in his confessionals afterwards he's talking like, yeah, Johnny can say what he wants, but let him cool off a little bit. He isn't coming after me. He's going to go after Tori in that side. So he's really in the perfect situation.
Dude, he is not only playing the perfect game, but he is basically showcasing like how well he has the game broken down. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he can sit there in this moment and all of the heat is on Tori, right? And all right, so Johnny wins the elimination and he puts the heat on Tori, Michelle, and Olivia. Jordan was just having the conversation with Olivia and Michelle, so if they win, guess who's not going into elimination? Him. And and if any of them win, guess who's most likely going into an elimination? One of his numbers against one of them. You know what I mean? And all three of those girls are his numbers.
It's crazy because you'll just see, I think it was going back to, it was John A's elimination of people just going after Jordan again because he can be tough to deal with and tough to work with, which true. I'm sure there are certain instances where we've seen that. But you've also seen him push his partners past whatever they thought they were capable of doing. And if you're if you were one of the people that was saying that, because I saw a lot of comments about it, you're not paying attention, because from episode
Not paying
1,
attention.
he's had a stranglehold of this game. And I think now that we're halfway through and we're seeing some of the scenes from last night, it's a masterclass that he's putting on, which has always been Jordan's biggest knock against him, is his social game. Well, he's got that figured out pretty damn well.
It's honestly, it's more than just a masterclass, and now it makes you have to go back and actually reflect on all of his seasons to see if his social game was actually also just as good. Right?
Mhm.
Like, he may have not have avoided as many eliminations, but it almost seems like his social game really may have always been that good, right? And his strategy has always been that good. And I agree with you. He has had an absolute stranglehold on the game since day one. When I tell you, when I was there, before he flew himself in and entered after everybody was already asleep, every single guy in that house, right? Like, because he wasn't there, everybody was drunk, taking shots, doing cheers and stuff. Like, I wasn't drinking, so I was paying attention to all this. They're doing chants, being like, and when Jordan gets here, he's the first one out. Like, throw him into every elimination, throw him into every elimination, throw him into, like, that's what he was coming into,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
Even with everybody on his team, that's what he was coming into. And he avoided it in such a way, right? Like, after the first daily where the team got to possibly throw somebody from their team in against somebody. And he just sat there and was like, yeah, you could throw me in. I am the best. I am a threat in the final. It is going to be an individual final, but you got to get there. And that, like, literally shut everybody up, because the whole team was like, well, we do want to get there, and if our team's winning, means we're safe, means none of our targets are going into elimination, means we have power and control. And that's all it took for him to just control the entire game, because he was never going in. And his relationships on the other teams were going to keep him from, going in.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how the rest of the season plans out, because I think we're in store. If we, assuming Jordan doesn't see a final, and if you assume that, you think he has a 90% chance of winning, if we're being nice about it, I I want to see the direction of what the rest of his, I guess, the arc for the rest of his season, because I think it could
Yeah,
be a potentially all-time great.
I agree. And at this point in the game, like, I think we hinted at this earlier, being like, if he wins this, like, this may go down as one of the best seasons of all time. But we said that early on in the season. Now here we are. We are at the halfway point. He's still looking like he's just walking to this final. Like, walking.
Oh yeah.
Now, not to say he didn't help him. He helped himself out. He won today's daily, right? But he wins a daily on a guy's day where he's not a target, and all he had to do was not come in last place, and he was safe. And he not only wins the daily to show that he's dominant, but he gets no blood on his hands with winning a daily.
Not just that, which are all great points, but it's the fact that you have the confessional with Josh. And if Josh said it, I'm sure he wasn't the only one thinking it. That everyone is looking at this being like, I care about how I stack up against Jordan. I understand he's the biggest threat here. And so if you're able to just show, hey, you still couldn't beat me on this, what makes you think you're going to be able to beat me on something that's going to have more endurance? It's going to be longer. So it's almost just punching down the rest of the competition to demoralize them for those future battles.
Yeah, and once again, the psychological aspect plays into eliminations. Like, I don't think people watching understand the psychological aspect of it. Like, when you see a guy like that competing like that, winning like that, like, all everybody was talking about that daily was like the conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hot out, like, disgusting out. Like, Michelle looked like she was getting a little bit of flustered at the end from dehydration and it just being so hot and humid, right? So now the conditions are like that, and you've got this guy like jogging back and forth like it's nothing. Like that's just demoralizing. And like even if people are considering throwing him into elimination, you got to understand like in that kind of heat and stuff, a guy that's able to stay that sharp, you don't even want to go into elimination against him. It's scary.
It's insane. And speaking of the daily, I know you have a lot of thought. What were your biggest takeaways from the daily this episode, other than what we've already talked about?
Well, there's a lot of people that are idiots that put balls in other people's stuff. Like I'm sorry, man, but like that is like this is why like sports coaches like hammer home like the basics, right? Because like when you get tired and everything, this is where that comes into play. And like apparently there was even more people, according to Kara, there was even more people that put the balls in other people's wrong stuff. So the fact that they only showed like three is crazy that there was more than three people that did that, because that seems to be like the easiest thing to do. Like, oh, I've got my balls. Let me make sure I'm putting it in the thing that says my name on it.
Yeah.
And then
don't even
Ryan
have to remember a color.
Ryan with the puzzle. I mean, that was about as good of a performance as Era 1 this entire season.
Era 1.
And I love
they're
Ryan.
Gone, but still getting kicked.
Hey, listen, I just saw them all, in Amsterdam. They're definitely feeling a certain type of way about all the things that we've been saying. But they were mad at Jordan and Kylan for agreeing with us. But they were giving me shit, being like, you're the one that started. And I said, well, I wasn't lying. You guys I'm not saying you guys suck. I'm just saying you guys sucked really bad this season and should probably stay on All-Stars. But I will say they all looked very jacked and they all looked very fit. So I don't know if we had a little bit of an Anissa effect here, where it's like you dog somebody for so long and they're finally going to get themselves back in shape. Anissa looks great, by the way, so shout out Anissa. I don't know who pissed you off enough to get you kicking in a high gear, but you look great, McQueen. But Era 1's looking, like I was hugging the guys and the girls, and I was like, when did you guys start like packing on like muscle like this? Like y'all feel tight, like real tight and everything. So, maybe we lit a fire under their asses to like have one actual last hurrah and, not just show up to, have a vacation and be embarrassed.
Well, I mean, to that, it just sounds like if they're able to come back and have not even a win, but a really good showing, I think we deserve, an appreciation post or thanks, because we're pushing them back to the greatness that they see themselves at when they look in the mirror.
I'll be the first one to apologize, but I'll also say you're welcome. Because without me saying what I said, you would never be motivated enough to get yourselves back in good shape. And, I want you guys to prove a point. I want to know that you guys in your 40s, can get yourselves back in insane shape. I'm getting close to 40. I'm about like 5 years away. So I want to be inspired, guys. Like, let me be inspired. I want to sit there, and if you guys could do it, in my head, I'll be like, at least I know when I get to their age, as long as I'm committed, I'll still have it.
There you go. See, this is all good things, You're just pushing them to be better. They'll push you to be better, and it's, circle of life.
Circle of life. Circle of life. That's it.
It's Jonny Fairplay, reality TV icon, Survivor Hall of Famer. And I'm talking today about Work Money. Work Money is a non-profit organization that focuses on lowering costs and raising incomes for all Americans to make American life more affordable and American families more economically secure. They provide products, services, perks, benefits, tips, and tools to help members improve their financial lives. It's time to level up and make more money in this economy. We're talking getting rich. Now, this sweepstakes is giving away $50,000. You can use this to pay your rent, your mortgage. Imagine what you can do with all the money that you'll save. Now, this is put on by Work Money, and this site has all these sick benefits, and it's free. Go sign up right now and get more rich. Now, listen, you can change your life. Now, what would you do if you didn't have to pay your rent or mortgage for a year? Listen, sign up right now for free. Link is available right here in the show notes. Check them out. Personally, I'd get More pinball machines. I'm Jonny Fairplay. I wouldn't lie about that. It's work money. More money.
So I think this leaves us as this is, the biggest part that we need to talk about of the entire episode, which is obviously Bananas versus Tori. It's what dominated all of it. It's
Are we going to talk about Bananas Angels at all?
Oh, well, no. You know what? It definitely has to be mentioned.
In a world of cringy alliance names, and here's the thing. Season 40, you start off this epic season with a massive speech from Rachel. Talking about the women who have built this show and everything. And then you just put all these strong, dominant women underneath a man and call it Bananas Angels. You couldn't call it Rachel's Roughhousers, Rachel and the Pussycat Dolls featuring Johnny Bananas. You couldn't have did any of these things. You couldn't have made it the Rowdy Rachels, featuring Johnny Bananas. Any of these things. It's no, this is Bananas Angels. They're not even working for him. They're working with them.
Agreed.
Rachel's the mastermind here.
Yeah, no, completely get that. I think it snubs Rachel a little bit, but I think when it came down to that, I know we saw Kara, and I believe the other was Tori, or whoever else it was that was pointing out, being I can't believe Rachel's a part of that. Well, Rachel's a part of the Alliance. She's not one of Johnny's minions, so I don't think we ever need to confuse that. But B, she's doing it because she's smart. Because Rachel, now that she survived Era 1 shitstorm, she's playing as good of a game, comparable with Jordan on the women's side the second half.
I would say.
Potentially.
Yeah, 100%. I think she 100% also saw the same writing on the wall that Jordan did and said, well, let me look at the guys that are left. Who can win dailies? Jordan and Bananas and maybe Kyland.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So at that point, it's if she covers those bases, she's good. And I would say Derek seemed like he was chugging along.
Yeah, he struggled at the end, but anything that's going to be where he can use his speed, I think he's a good kind of secondary option to a Jordan in an endurance, because we've seen enough of it now that isn't something that really bothers him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's playing a great game. Granted, I'm sure she laughs at the whole Bananas Angels thing because she knows what's going on, but whatever. Bananas Angels, it's a talking point, I guess.
Bananas Angels, that's it. I wondered if was Jenny in it as well?
Yes, I think it was Jenny, Rachel, Aviv, and Laurel.
I'm a little shocked how Aviv is just in there. I haven't seen any storyline of a relationship forming friendship wise with Bananas and Aviv this entire season. Have you?
No, but I think that goes on. We've seen very little of Aviv this entire season. We saw her when she was up for elimination against Darrell, and Darrell was like, yeah, fuck that, save me. But for the most part, Aviv hasn't been a central kind of figure of any storyline, which really just makes me sad because she came out strong with reunion boobies, and I was hoping this was going to be a breakout season for her.
She came out with reunion boobies, and she's given us reunion blue balls with her storyline this season. I don't know if I'm a viewer watching this and all of a sudden I see Bananas Angels pop up and Aviv's face is in there, I'm sitting there being like, when the fuck did Aviv become part of this alliance? Is that by proxy? How is this happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. They're definitely not doing good work laying the groundwork for that.
Yeah.
But so if we're going to look at, Tori, Bananas, this is something that, was hinted at last week. And I guess I was never, most of the, fans, commenters seem to be surprised by this. I am surprised the way that Tori drew the line, but I was never surprised that there was going to be a Bananas Devin kind of side of the line, for the simple fact that you could say, oh, they buried the hatchet on Ride or Dies. They buried the hatchet out of necessity. Not Derek. Devin and Tori ended up in the first elimination because they didn't have numbers. Bananas and Nany come in, and they're working together almost out of necessity because they don't have any other options. Not because, they came in and say, oh, I want to make the past right. And so I think when you put them in 40, where they both have enough other options that they don't need each other, I always saw this as inevitable. But I don't know if you saw this a different way.
I didn't see it as inevitable. Here's what I see happening right now. I think that there was a good stretch where Bananas was able to use the whole, I don't know how many more of these I got in me. I'm just trying to like squash, any stuff that I have with everybody that, did whatever. According to what I've seen Devin say, is he pulled a very similar move this season, where he told Devin, like, yeah, man, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't stay too long. Right. And he said that to Devin early, and Devin was like, all right, well, come this time, if you're still here, like, I'll help you leave. But Devin started seeing that all of a sudden he says that, and then he starts training hard in the gym and training harder in the gym. So I think Devin was expecting to, once again, be waited out until it got to the mark that he said, all right, at this point in time, like, if you don't gracefully bow out, I'll help you a little bit. And then all chaos broke loose. And I think that moving forward, Jonny is not going to be able to use the whole, I'm just trying to see the rest of my years out, like, friendly with everybody. And, he can't use anymore when he comes into a season like, yeah, I got to get out of here early. Because I got stuff to do. Right. So I think what's happening is you are seeing a bunch of people who have been cordial with Jonny maybe for the past 4 years, because he's been saying that to all of them. Right. Like the Joshes, the Tories, the Devins, the Coreys, even the Jordans to a certain extent. He said it to me. Right. And what I think we've seen, right, because on USA 2, you saw Josh kind of take the little shot at him, right, because he was thinking about his game, which he then had to repay this season. And now this season, you're seeing Devin, Tori, and Jordan kind of putting the hit out on the Banana Man, and kind of being like, all right, like we're kind of tired of him saying like all this, and then he just kind of rides himself to the final, and even though he hasn't won since Total Madness, like he's there, which means that there is a chance that he could win, because he can win finals, right? And I think everybody's starting to kind of be like, we don't want him close to the end anymore. And I think this season he's dug himself a little bit of a hole, that he's going to have to strategically figure out how to get himself out of, in seasons moving forward, because I don't think he could come into seasons, and make it to the halfway point before people are looking at him anymore, especially with how sour it went, with him and Devin and Michelle.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, because I've heard Banana's side of the story, and Banana's side of the story was Devin, drunk one night, said that we have a deal till the halfway point, and then once that's over, like, I'm going to come after you. And so what you're telling me from what you heard from Devin, that's obviously completely different story, changes everything. And so if the story you got is true from Devin's point of view, and other people in the house know that it's true, you almost hope as Bananas, like, I hope you win, because you may have just put a even larger target on yourself moving forward, if that's what the cast believes really happened.
100%. And like, once again, I've heard Devin's side and I've heard Banana's side, right? So I can just take the truths from here. And like, the only thing in my head that I think is, like, once again, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Did a conversation happen between the two of them? Yes. Was there some sort of weeks talked about? Yes. what strategy seems to be the smarter strategy is what I say in my head. Is it a smart strategy to tell somebody to their face that, hey, I'm telling you exactly when I'm going to target you, week 5, right? Or should I just like in my mind have it that I'm going to target you week 5, and then if you're still there, do it, and and then like give you the heads up before I do it, like, hey, bro, like I know I said I wasn't coming, right? So like that's where I sit there and I dissect what Jonny says, to be like, why would Devin do that? That's just stupid, right? Whereas it might be a little bit more feasible because, like I would play that if I had used every card that if you've done 20 plus seasons, everybody knows every shtick that you have, right? And I could play that card, like I would play that card, and it was believable, right? Because he did do House of Villains, he did do Traitors prior to season 40, right? So like when he's sitting in there saying that he's got to go because he's got a lot of stuff to do back home because he's really busy, that's also believable. But then, when you're playing a game, like if you are ready to go home, like you're not going to the gym and working out hard, you're not running, you're not doing all of these things, and you're definitely not stirring the pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you're stirring the pot to get yourself thrown into an elimination. So I don't know who's lying, who's telling the truth. There's probably some truth right in there. But what I will say is what we will probably see play out moving forward is, it's going to be a lot of fun seasons. I'll be very excited to see there and see where I can sprinkle in some dynamite to see if I could set off some explosions, get some fireworks going. But yeah, I think a lot of people that have been cordial to Bananas are starting to kind of have that mindset of like, hey, I've paid more than enough of my debt, and I've been more than nice, kind of not coming for you early on like I always did. And I'm talking about like the Coreys and the Devins and, the Jordans and, now Tori at this point, possibly Josh. And it's like, hey, I've served my time. Like you've been making it to finals. You've been winning. Like I want that now.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to keep you around just for you to stab me in the back.
Absolutely. And I know we're running a little bit, tight on time, but I think where we have to end is just with Tori, because we talked about the Bananas and Devin of it all, but Tori's taken a lot of shit, really since you left, Paulie. You were the last time, when you and Kara kind of took your hiatus, Tori was still being rooted for. She came back, she's the Vacation Alliance, everything, and I feel like she's been popular in the show from like producers, but not from the fans. There's been a lot of things that the fans have just kind of dogged her for. Some fair, some not. It depends where you're at with all of it. But this was a Tori that I've like, where the hell has this been? Because this is the Tori that I want to see. Tori that's spicy, Tori that's willing to actually make definitive decisions, to draw lines in the sand, who also is a powerhouse player in this game. Be like, this is the Tori I want to see moving forward. I will accept no other.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. And this has been my problem with them for so long is it's like, once again, it took Jonny to be the catalyst to set all of these people off, right? Because like they were all fine being cool with each other and all like, working together with each other. And this is just how they operate. And it's like, at the end of the day, this is a game for money, guys. Like we could be friends in real life, like seeing this side of Tori, love it. Seeing the old spicy Devin come back, love it, right? Bananas kind of going back to being the shit starter that he always was, right? And actually being pissed and like actually trying, you know what I mean? Like that's it. But once again, it took Jonny to be the catalyst on this by, stirring some shit up with Michelle and like lying and, pulling a banana special, and trying to stir some shit between Devin and Michelle. But also, look who else woke up. Olivia's now woken up. Michelle is now woken up. Like, it's on. You know what I mean? And Olivia's pissed. Theo's still in the game. So Theo's going to be pissed. You know, like, this is what makes the challenge the challenge. And this is what we love to see. Now, you know, now if only we could just all start this from, like, the get-go. You know?
It would be great, but we have this Bananas, and I just laugh because people will give him shit. You know, people that don't like Bananas will give him shit like, oh, you know, he'll never grow up, and, you know, it's why maybe he doesn't get the turn into liking him later in life, like the CT or the West. But it's just like, I don't want him to grow up, because his line at the end of pissing off half the house, calling Olivia a pet snake and Devin's next ex-girlfriend, while that is pretty fucked up to say, I want to see it on my show.
100%. It's hilarious. And, you know, I always sat there as I went through these, you know, shows, and I was always like, you know, Wes has had a growth moment. He's adapted his game from what it once was. CT has had a growth moment. He's adapted his game for what it once was. And I've always been like, Jonny has not adapted his game at all. He's literally stayed the same all these years. And we've also seen no growth in him. But now I'm sitting here watching it from the outside, and I'm like, all right, don't grow up yet. You know what I mean? Like, just
stay Peter Pan.
Yeah, stay Peter Pan, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, because it's hilarious. But I'm enjoying seeing, people actually have like emotions, like feelings, like people relate to those emotions. Like, it really, when I say it, like I say it with disgust that, like, there was a good 4 years where, like, people were getting thrown into eliminations and just being like, all right, yeah, no, I understand, thank you, like, I still love you, like, bestie. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, what is, like, you, like, the newbies coming on getting thrown into eliminations? Well, yeah, you know, I just understand it because, like, I'm a rookie. And it's like, and, like, then it was just like confessional gangster stuff. Yeah, like, it was just confessional gangster stuff. Like, this is raw happening out loud. Like, that's what you want to see. Like, you haven't seen stuff like this since War of the Worlds 1 and War of the Worlds 2, where it's like the eliminations are getting nasty. People in the stands are fighting with each other based on who wins and who loses. You know, there's fights happening over who got voted in, who's the target, who's this, who's that. Like, man, it's great. It's gret. Best episode of the season, I think.
For the drama-wise, absolutely. Because this is one of the first times where there were a few episodes where I was like, I like that episode, and we got snippets of it. But you think about it, sure, we learned a lot from the daily, and it was, you know, fun to see, but it was short. The elimination, awful, but, you know, we don't really need to dive into that. But this whole episode was really all circled around the drama of it. And that's what people have been complaining for, you know, the past few years, is there is none of it. And we're finally getting it. And if you're looking at ahead to, you know, next week on the show or further on down the line, it seems like it's going to keep, you know, building and building. And we're going to get more Bananas versus Tori, which I'm sure will turn into other people as well. And it's like, is our show back? Like, is the challenge finally coming back to what we know and love, which is drama first, competition second?
I mean, as long as I have something to say about it, you know, as long as there's still air in my lungs, all right, trust me, every season I'm on, there will be drama, there will be fire, there will be spice, and I think that it makes me excited to see all these people also do it, in order to, like, have something to work with, so that it's not just like me going in there and, like, being the one guy that they could all be like, oh man, we got to get rid of him because he's the bad vibes, and we just want to be peaceful, kumbaya. But it's good. Great episode. Love the episode. The only thing that kind of somewhat annoys me is these weird slow-mo shots of, like, people putting the target things on them. Like, I thought that was stupid. Like, you know, the slow-mo of, like, Jenny, like, throwing down the thing and, like, stomping on it. I was like, all right, that's, like, a little cheesy. Like what was that? Like, I could do without that. Like, give me those 30 seconds back. Fill it with anything else but that.
My only guess was we had those 2 seasons back to back where we leaned heavily into the spy theme, and there's still one guy on production somewhere that they're like, fine, like give him his 2 shots per episode.
Like, listen, I'm all for like doing the slow-mo walkouts. Maybe not every time. Like, I remember we used to film the walkouts every season I did, and they were never used. Never used. They were never used on War of the Worlds 1, 2, on Final Reckoning. Like, the exit shots of leaving the house were never used. You know what I mean? Like, they got shots on the bus of like us being locked in the zone, ready to go. You know, obviously the walk ups to TJ have always been a thing, but dude, we really also have overdone like the slow mo walkouts at this point. Like, we've done them every single episode. Every single episode, there's a slow mo walkout. Like, I get it in sports games, like you do your walkouts, like in soccer.
Mm.
It like once again, I'm like, what are we doing here?
It's
You know,
but it's definitely it's weird. But if we get the rest of what we got this episode, I'll handle the weird slow mo stuff. But
yeah, but like
I know.
I would have I could understand like getting the walkouts. Does it always have to be in slow mo? Like, what if in the walkout, like I'm about to go against somebody that's walking out on the other side, and I want to be yelling across the room, being like, "Fuck you, bitch! Like you're going home, bitch! Like I'm taking you out." But like, I'd rather that get shown than like we're all just staring forward, walking, and then it's in like slow mo. Like, what if there's some chaos? Like, I want the opportunities for chaos. Is basically what I'm saying.
I completely agree with you there. The more chaos, the better. But we're at least moving in the right
Oh,
direction.
did I lose you?
So I think that's at this point all that I can really ask for. And but
Yep.
any final thoughts on the episode? Anything we didn't touch on?
Um, there was a Mario Kart elimination. That's all I got to say. It's really all I got to say about that.
It felt like it wasn't worth really talking about. There was in
Yeah,
fact an
no.
elimination, and
Yeah, we don't need to
Bananas
talk about
wins.
it, like, because we're not going to be nice about it. But for anybody tuning into this, we want you to know there was an actual elimination here. Ryan did go home. Bananas did win. He did name Naya, Michelle, and Olivia as targets in a very hilarious fashion. He could not pick Tori, which also was hilarious because he was genuinely pissed off that he couldn't. Um, and yeah, that's all we need to say about that elimination because you know we don't need to talk about it.
yeah. Which the last thing that I will say is thank God. The other thing we've been asking for, Mary, the producers for years. It took them a few seasons, but we're finally getting it back. The daily matters. If you win, you get power and you're safe. You lose, there's a consequence. You're going into elimination. And it's like, this is all we've wanted for 4 seasons now. Like, you did it.
No more skating. We love it.
Yeah.
We love it. We love the format. Thank you.
We're finally getting the challenge back, which is what we love to see. We didn't get to the comments today. As I know Paulie said last time, pick our favorite 3. We'll double up on it next week when we have Alex back. That way we can get the full, reaction from the
We want
entire
the full
squad.
experience
So,
here, guys.
yeah.
We're gonna double up. So keep commenting.
Yeah. Yes, definitely keep commenting. We'll do 3 from last week's episode next week, as well as the top 3 from this. Will say I'm a little disappointed. I want some spicier stuff from you guys. So take 2 before we start launching this. Let's see some better comments.
Take 2, guys. All right, we want them spicy. So we'll give you a break this week, but we'll read the 3 from this week next week, and the ones that are coming this week need to be better than those 3.
Absolutely. So keep them commenting. Keep them coming. We'll be back with Alex next week. We appreciate everyone watching and listening. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts at, make sure you like and review. Give us a 5-star review if you could. Hey, the OGs are listening to us, so I think that's a better reason why y'all should be too. Let us know. And as always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron at realitypatron.com. Sign up, join it for a month. It gets you access to the secret Facebook group, the weekly Q&A, as well as this podcast and every other podcast ad-free. Try it for a month. If you don't like it, Jonny Fairplay will give you your money back. He always says he'll guarantee it. So you'll have to take that up with him, but he's a good guy. He'll give it back to you.
He's good for it. He's good for it.
Yeah, he's definitely good for it. That's going to do it for us this week. That's Paulie. I'm Dan. We will see you all next week, and we'll have Alex back. See y'all.